The final point is about equality and inequality. Once you reach a certain level of economic well-being, I wouldn't like to put a figure on it, then rather than going for equality, equivalence, parity of esteem is a better goal. The material equality beyond a certain point really doesn't matter all that much. You know, do you have one television set or two, one cars or two? This is in a way, I think, a material aspiration which does not meet the problem of equality of respect, parity of esteem. At that point, it's access to power, opportunity, and status which should remain open. Full equality is dystopic and can legitimate authoritarian patterns of distribution and redistribution. Thank you for your attention. I didn't think I'd gone over my 10 minutes.
Thank you. I was particularly interested in perhaps our next and last formal presentation. We can touch on this Lithuanian context, but this idea of blending the formal and the informal, and thinking about what the ultimate end goals or aspirations of institution building or social movement may be, and then thinking about the means that can be achieved. And I think the Lithuanian experience provides an example of how that's been done in practice. So perhaps you can give us a short case study in how it worked in one place.
Thank you. Well, a sort of rather ungrateful task falls to me to be the last speaker in the last panel on Saturday evening, who always will get blamed for his predecessors overrunning. But that's by the by. I don't know how my sort of narrative on primarily based on Lithuanian experience will sort of touch upon these questions. I'm totally with agreement with Georgi Shoflin about this sort of necessity of successful blending of formal and informal institutions in order for a revolution to be institutionalized. I will start from the observation that we are all, in a way, children of some revolution. Whether it's Rose Revolution or Velvet Singing Revolutions of 1988 1990, or student and sex revolutions of the late 60s, or, God forbid, the Great October Revolution. But nevertheless, even if we are stepchildren, we cannot sever the genetic link, and even if we are not ourselves sort of made of revolutionary stuff, we are of revolution in the way that Heinrich Böll described that potato is not made from the earth, but it is of the earth. And I'll try to sort of think about what, in Lithuanian experience, this fact means. But I think it's also easily extrapolatable to other, what I term conservative revolutions, whether in Central and Eastern Europe or possibly in Georgia. And what does the fact of sort of being a product of revolution mean to our society? Well, first of all, we're talking about the 1988-1990 revolutions. The term is used primarily as sort of Hannah Arendt term as a revolution, as a comeback to abandoned truths and value systems. It's a sort of restitution, and the Lithuanian singing revolution, not only Estonians had it, Mr. Shoflin also Lithuanians, is analyzable as sort of three acts, three moments of restitution. Well, the political restitution of the statehood and independence, which also is intimately linked with the restitution of international legality. There was this very symbolic moment of the proclamation of the Lithuanian independence that for half an hour the Constitution of 1938 was reintroduced and then suspended because it was no longer suitable for functioning in the changed society. But nevertheless, it was a point that we're not just continuing the kind of Soviet process, we are radically questioning it. And the new constitution would be written not as a sort of amendments to the Soviet constitution, but actually updating of the previous last legal constitution of 1938. The economic, and I think it's very important to see that kind of seamless link between a revolution and reforms. Because what comes as a sort of economic revolution and sort of revolutionizing of economic relations and bringing back of economic freedom is also sort of very directly linked to the sort of economic reforms in the economic field. And what directly follows from political restitution is economic restitution of property as a continuity of what was legal property and individuals' sort of inalienable property before the totalitarian regime took it away. So in a sense, restitution of economic freedom and economic reforms go hand in hand with a sort of revolutionary impulse to bring back the normal economic relations, which was suspended by the totalitarian regime. And the third sort of impulse is the move, which I think sort of inspired and sort of was the spiritus movens of the whole sort of informal movement in Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, is the discontent of the society, societal revolution, which moves from the closely sort of monitored and controlled Soviet society into open and freedom-aspiring, whatever that freedom means, whether it's positive, negative. This is the debate which later on fragments the popular movement, but which sort of moves into open and free society. So these three sort of moments of restitution, three conservative revolutions, constituted what was the sort of the social transformation in Lithuania in the 90s. And it's, I think, very important to see this sort of kind of how the first kind of unstructured revolutionary impulse very seamlessly transits. Maybe that's the sort of blending of informal and formal institutions into very kind of precise economic, political, and other reforms. And I think this is what this being part of the kind of born out of revolution left our society, is this readiness to change, this constant change. Because immediately when the first sort of revolutionary impulse was, in a sense, transformed itself into state institutions of the newly independent Lithuania, there was a new sort of process integration of the EU and NATO. And that also imposed a sort of a series of reforms on the Lithuanian society, the harmonization of the legal system, of all the sort of various provinces of administration and administration of justice, and so on and so forth. And which, in a sense, they were different reforms from. They were not. Lithuania was an object of them rather than the subject, and the society was not itself the originator of those reforms, but it was quite willing of undertaking them. So, in a sense, from 1990 to 2004, when Lithuania entered the EU and NATO, 14 years of continuous reform. And in a sense, of course, this creates tensions, and I think there are inherent tensions between revolution and normalization. And there's a sort of desire in the society for finding a stable situation. But on the other hand, every normality in the global world, with the increased competition, produces also the constant imperative for reform, for change, and our post-revolutionary societies. And this is my small thesis. I can sort of other add-ons to it, but knowing the time is very limited, I'll probably limit myself to the first step in that, and say that being the result of the post-revolutionary society is this readiness to constant change, which I think has to be translated itself, and this is where our institutional reforms are lacking. We are not using the instruments of education and culture to make these reforms into the habitus, into the habit of democratic life. And just one more thing. Because the third restitution is the most difficult, the societal transformation. It's not the political, not the legal, not the economic, but the societal one. And this is always the question of model. What is going to be the model? Is it going to be, what is going to be considered as the normal society? What is normality in this sense? I know that normality is a very suspect concept, especially in this kind of postmodern deformations of consciousness, but is it going to be a convergence model? Is it the way that Western Europe lives now? Is this kind of the model to be aspired to? Or is it going to be a kind of reactionary reconstruction model, going into the pre-war times? I know that for Georgia, going back to the time before the Soviets is not something feasible, but for Lithuania, Poland, and a number of other states, it was and still is sometimes emerges on the margins of the political spectrum. So I think what I want to say is that actually we're living in a difficult time from the point of social transformation, that that convergence model has not worked. And I think it has to be discarded, especially after the last crisis. What they used to say about the meaning of the colors of the Estonian flag, the white means and will be like Finns too. But you know, that's a very sort of inside joke to fellow sort of Estonian sort of lover. But you know, I think the convergence model, when we have to undertake welfare state and sort of kind of developed bureaucratic procedural mechanism under the pressures of sort of globalized competition, is not really sort of something that we can aspire to, even in Lithuania, let alone Georgia, which is a sort of. So in fact, what we have to look is to